Hey everyone, welcome to another edition of The Bullet. My name is Paul Lathrop. I'm the Deputy Director of New Media for the Second Amendment Foundation. Joining me today, as he does every other Wednesday, Dan Wos, author of the Good Gun, Bad Guy series of books. He's also got the Loaded Mike radio show. Dan, thanks for coming along for the ride today, man.
Oh, excellent. Thanks for having me, Paul.
Well, let's go ahead and get started with, as I usually do, if you're watching us on the YouTube feed or the Facebook feed for the Polite Society podcast, you can comment on those live videos. We'll get your comments up on the air, and we're also we're already getting comments in with specific questions. I will be getting to here in just a second. Let me do this fast because my phone started making noise. I gotta shut it up. But if you're catching us anywhere like on Getter, on Rumble, on OpsLens, if you're catching us anywhere else, go to Twitter, tweet with the hashtag #TheBullet. Last 2 days, Dan, we've been doing a whole lot of talking about the Nashville shooting. And I've just got one thing from that today. And what I've been catching is a lot of word that transgender activists are screaming and hollering because this poor girl who murdered 3 children and 3 adults at that school is being misgendered. This psychotic killer chose him, he, him, whatever. Look, this person was biologically female. You lose your right to name your pronouns when you start killing kids.
You know, it just goes to show you what the political left really cares about. They do not care about the children who die in these things. Let's not forget, gun-free school zones are a big cause in all this stuff. And
Yep.
Joe Biden introduced that back in 1990. And nobody's talking about the Gun-Free School Zones Act. They want to instantly come out with, they want to stand on the graves of these little kids and talk about so-called assault weapons. And it's absolutely sickening. And I can't believe we're at this point in our society, but we are. So we really need to understand who we're dealing with. We're dealing with, some might say, demonic people who don't care about anything but their power in politics. And the whole idea, we can get into the whole transgender stuff. To me, what I see happening is a massive sort of mental disorder that's starting from a trendy transgender thing. Now, my son is young. He's in his early 20s. And he even told me today, we were talking about this, and he said, I said, doesn't this seems like it's more trendy than anything? How are all these transgender people all of a sudden popping up? And he said, no, Dad. He said, you're exactly right. It is trendy. That's what's happening here. So kids are being convinced that it's the cool thing to do. I don't know about you, Paul, but when I was a kid, we grew our hair long. We were playing rock and roll. We were wearing leather jackets. We were doing stuff. There's certain trendy things that we did. I think this generation is just taking it to the next level with the transgender stuff. I can't imagine that they're all really transgender. It's just so silly. And not only that, but that we are asked, or we're almost forced to go along with this fantasy. I can't do it.
Well, you and I both know several people in the gun rights world who are transgender. And
right.
I do not want to disparage them at all.
Right.
The people I know in the gun rights world that are transgender are incredibly brave, because not only are they transgender, they come out as gun owners, which is for them a double whammy. It's being exercised from a community that is already exercised. But yeah, I mean, my whole thing is, if you murder children, you give up the right to be called what you want to be called. I'm going to call you what I want to call you, starting with a sick, you know.
Well, I can tell you're getting mad. But okay, so let's talk about that. There's so much to talk about within this topic. You're right. The people we know who are transgender are excellent people. We know who they are. We don't have to say their names. We know who they are. They're good people. I don't even qualify them with what's going on here with this younger generation and the transgender stuff. There's something else happening here, and I think what it is the political left is teaching these kids that they are somehow being attacked, that there is even talk about a genocide against transgender people. This is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. It's not true at all.
Right.
But what happens is, and the same thing that's happened with the black-white racial divide, is the political left turns these people into victims of society and makes them angry and makes them believe that other people are literally attacking them and want to kill them and stuff. So what happens then is they get angry and they want to lash out because they're convinced, they're getting brainwashed that everyone wants to kill them or something. It's insanity. So now they're getting so mad, they're going out, and this one particular girl in the Tennessee killing, she actually went ahead and did it. I mean, the anger and the confusion and the delusion that must have been going on in her brain, I can't even comprehend it. But I can tell you this: I believe the political left is cultivating this in these people. I don't know how it's happening, but I believe they're cultivating it. And I will echo what you said. This is not to disparage the people who are really struggling with this. And as a matter of fact, people that we know, that in no way are we trying to disparage them, but there's something else going on. And I believe that the people that we know that we're talking about would probably agree with us that something strange and unusual is happening to the youth with respect to the transgender stuff.
Yeah. You know, when I was in my teens and early 20s, if you were to stand out, if you felt like you were being oppressed, if you wanted to stand out, if you wanted to be apart from the crowd, you were a fan of punk. You dressed in leather, you spiked your hair. There was a lot of strange things that people back then did, but not. I mean, do you think it could just be sign of the times?
Well, and here's another thing that I want to point out. My observation, and then we can get into more gun stuff. I know we want to try to stay on the gun topic, but this is important too. I think what the political left is trying to do with converting these kids to believe that they're transgender or that they're the opposite sex, I think it's twofold. Their mission. I think number one, they're trying to push them closer and closer to castration, to the actual sex change operation, because I think they might be going for lowering reproduction. And I know it might sound crazy, but what happens is you talk about kids believing they're the opposite sex than they were born, and ultimately you have adults and teachers cultivating that, which ultimately leads to puberty blockers, and then into hormone therapy, and then ultimately into sex change operations.
Yep.
I think that's the goal here, and I think it's for two reasons. I think it's to dehumanize people, because what happens when these kids, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old, whatever, and they have these sex change operations? What happens to them when they're 20 years old and they're trying to make it in life? They can't go back, Right. And are they more or less empowered? Do they have more or less self-esteem at that point after they've already made this horrible decision that it might be horrible for them. How do they continue on, and are they more or less empowered? I would say that most of these people are less empowered, and which is why we hear so much about suicides among the transgender. Not only that, it helps the political left in their slowing of reproduction.
Let's get a couple of comments in here quick. First one up, My Take wants to know any word on stopping the pistol brace ban. That one is all going to happen through the courts, and we do have some court stories coming up, but nothing specific that I've come across today about the pistol brace ban going down. George says that school shooting was an anti-Christian hate crime.
True. Yeah. That's a good point. That's a big piece of this, too, you know.
Well, I'm waiting to see the manifesto.
Yeah. And this anti-Christian movement is really sinister and really evil, and that scares me, too, because they say that the number of Christians now is going down. The number of churchgoers, it goes down, and we need God in our lives. Without God in our lives, I think we're a doomed society.
Let me get to this one here quick, and I'm gonna have a bit of a strange take on this. What adults do fine, but what anyone under 18 are what they are until they're adults. My take on this is more like you hear all the time. People under 25 years old should not be able to use firearms because their brains aren't fully formed yet. Then why are we letting them change their sex? Why are we giving this life-changing, life-ruining, in some cases, and in some cases I'm sure it's good, but in many cases this ruins lives by doing this medical procedure. Why are we letting that happen, but restricting their right to keep and bear arms?
Yeah. There's a sinister agenda underlying all this stuff. There's more to it than just let kids be what they want to be. There's more to it. You don't push for sex change operations and ultimately castration and chemical castration and all this other stuff if there's not an underlying agenda.
Yeah. Let me get a couple more here. I like this one. Was and were pronouns for that wacko. And I have heard, and I'm not going to discount this, I have heard that the motive for the shooting, actually, it was an attempted suicide, a successful suicide by cop. And then also real quick, we got couple of comments that my sound was way down. Yours was fine, but mine was down. I did make an adjustment. I should be about the same volume as you are now. That should all be handled. Next one I want to talk about, next story, Dan. This one comes from the California Rifle and Pistol Association. I'm just going to read from their press release here. Faithful CRPA members were alerted Monday night to the state's appeal of the decision handed down recently in Boland versus Bonta. California Rifle and Pistol Association's case challenged the safe handgun roster. As we dug in a bit deeper to what the state is appealing, there's an interesting omission. The state pushed back on the circuit's ruling that the roster's requirements of a chamber load indicator and a magazine disconnect mechanism, but there was no mention in the appeal of microstamping. For years now, CRPA and others in the 2A community have objected to this criterion because the technology is, for all intents and purposes, impossible to implement. Not so ironically, this is the exact same reason anti-2A lawmakers like it. If no firearm can meet the criteria, it's essentially a ban. As CRPA President and General Counsel Chuck Michel noted, anti-gun owner politicians want to strangle the constitutional right to purchase the latest, safest handguns. They will never respect an individual's right to choose a handgun appropriate for their specific needs and circumstances. So CRPA's lawsuit will force them to do so. So it looks like Bob Bonta, in appealing, has given up on the microstamping, and that's look. California, where California goes, the rest of the anti-gun states follow. So this is huge for me. New Jersey specifically is one I can think of that is trying very hard to get microstamping in, along with smart handguns, both of which do not work. And by the state of California giving up on microstamping in the appeals process, this is a big win, man.
Yeah, well, I think it's become so obvious that it's impossible to do it, that they really can't pursue it, because right now, as far as I know, Californians can only buy pistols that are 2013 or older.
Yes.
Because of the new technology, they and now that's unbelievable, because a lot of new handguns have come out, a lot of new technology, and but the microstamping is just something that I don't know who dreamed it up, but it's really kind of ridiculous and impossible to do. How are you going to really manufacture and make that imprint? I mean, it's a tiny imprint. How many different possible different imprints could you have in such a microscopic area to work with? And how then will you trace? The tracing system is going to be so massive and complex. I don't even understand how they would do it. So they haven't. The manufacturers haven't been able to do it. So manufacturers would rather say, okay, well, screw you, California. We can't help you. Right?
Well, and that goes back to the 90s when California said, yeah, no 50 calibers for the underclass. However, we're still going to buy them for our police. And Barrett, the Barrett Firearms said, yeah, no, if we can't sell to the public, we're not selling to the police in California either.
Well, it reminds me of the 50 cal. It reminds me of an article that I wrote on Phil Murphy is the Jersey governor, correct? Phil
Yes.
Murphy? Yeah. So Phil Murphy said that they wanted to ban 50 cals, if I remember right, a while back, and it was his excuse was because it could take out a helicopter. And I was thinking, how many New Jersey residents are taking down helicopters? It's just the justification for these laws is so ridiculous, but they'll dream up anything they possibly can to try to push this stuff through. The
last time, and I do not have the specifics on this, but I'm fairly certain the last time an aircraft of any variety was taken down by a 50 caliber was in Korea during the Korean War. That would have been the last time.
Yeah, so it's not happening in New Jersey. It's not happening in California. It's not happening anywhere.
Yeah. Next story I got up, man. This one came out off of AmmoLand. Jim Jordan, the chairman of the House Representatives Committee on the Judiciary and Subcommittee on the Administrative State, Regulatory Reform and Antitrust Chairman Thomas Massey have invited the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosive Director Steve Dettelbach to testify in front of Congress on April 26th. Representatives Jordan and Massey have questions about the ATF's rulemaking process, The committee requested multiple documents about the ATF's rulemaking process and the agency's effort to regulate firearms without going through the proper channels in Congress. Committee has additional questions that it wants Dettelbach to answer in questions. Not only they're putting forward rules they don't have the legal authority to do, they also want to question Dettelbach about ATF's basic war on gun shops and a 500% increase in revoking of licenses from the ATF. So that's going to come down in late April. We'll see if maybe the Biden administration will find a way for Dettelbach to get out of this, but I don't know, man.
Yeah, well, the Biden administration loves to use, these organizations as weapons, and obviously the ATF with the bump stock rules, and now the pistol frame rules, and the pistol brace rules, and all the stuff that they're trying to do. They're literally using appointed people to essentially. They may as well be writing law, because what it's doing is these rules are now turning good people into felons overnight. They just change the rule, and you and I become felons. So, ultimately, I don't think these things have a lot of. Ultimately, in court, we will win most likely, but the problem is it takes time to go through the court system, just like we're still fighting in New York.
Money to go through the court system.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I always say, support your gun rights organizations. They're the ones out on the front lines fighting for this stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And with this specific one, I mean, the big. I'll be certainly when this happens on the 26th. I will make certain I'm watching this live as it happens. Right now, the biggest thing that could happen is they could just get this guy in front of Congress where he cannot lie, and get him to admit that it comes from farther up, that he's following marching orders. Regardless, though, he still has to follow the law. That's part of his oath of office, is to follow the law, and he's not doing that now.
Right. Yep.
Let's see here. Let me go check on comments here real quick. Let me go to a comment we got from Gun Websites just a little bit ago, talking about your referring to your commentary from earlier. Pete says, "Look who profits from the rifts in society: politicians and the sinister. This was an evil, broken down individual, not an indication of larger opinions or speaking for any groups, in my opinion." Yeah, you're right there. However, my words are failing me. Dan, go.
Well, I think, I think it makes a point. This person is definitely broken, psychologically disturbed. Something seriously wrong is going on in the mind of this person. Anybody who can take a life, let alone the lives of three little children, three little Christians, three little beautiful little Christian kids, and three adults. Something has to be wrong with the individual. Yes, agreed. But how does that happen? I mean, we're living in a society now where the political left is encouraging stuff. Who's that guy? Cenk something. He's from left-wing podcast guy. Cenk, I forget his last name. He was just recently, a couple weeks ago, encouraging transgender people to go out and get guns because they're being genocided or oppressed, and so they can defend themselves against these attacks that aren't even happening. I don't know where these attacks on transgender people are actually happening, but they're feeding their minds with it. So to the comment, yes, it is the individual, but I think I think there's a larger entity that's cultivating this. It's a tough one. I don't really know the answers to it.
Well, and to go off of what you were just talking about, I as well encourage transgender people to arm themselves against attack.
Of course.
I encourage anybody that wants to arm themselves to defend themselves. That is that's part of our rights.
Of course it is, but they're being encouraged to do it because they're being told that they're being attacked and there's a genocide against transgender people. That's the disturbing part. So these people are getting this stuff in their head and they want to go out and hurt people because of it. That's where the problem is. It's crazy. Crazy.
Right. I'm going to skip down. We've got about time for one more story. I'm going to go to the last one. North Carolina story here. A major gun rights bill that includes a controversial repeal of the state's permit requirement for buying handguns will become law in North Carolina after the GOP-controlled legislature overrode, doggone it, why can't I talk, Governor Roy Cooper's veto. Senate Bill 41 successfully passed a veto override vote 71 to 48 in the House Wednesday morning, following a similar successful vote in the Senate on Tuesday evening. The votes quickly followed Cooper's decision Friday to veto the bill and marked the first time GOP lawmakers have overridden a veto from the Democratic governor since 2018, when Republicans last held a supermajority. North Carolina, I'm going to say this to you. Good that Jim Crow legislation is going away. That's great. What would be even better is if you elected a governor that respected your rights.
Yep. I wish we could all do that. You know, I'm up here in New York. I wish we could have done that. But here we are trying to deal with this tyranny. California's even worse. Jersey's bad. Massachusetts, Connecticut. There's a lot of bad states with a lot of horrible, horrible governors. So
yeah. Well, let me just do a little bit of fast Google foo here. All right, let me see here. There are 26 states as of today with Republican governors, 24 with Democrat governors. So,
well, that's good to know.
Yeah.
I didn't think it was. I thought it would be a majority of Democrats, but okay, good. And now, are we up to 26 constitutional carry states yet, or are we still hanging on one?
Not yet. Both Florida and Nebraska, and oh, by the way, Nebraska cleared a major hurdle yesterday. I think it was yesterday they cleared the hurdle and beat a filibuster. They've got one more to defeat, and then the bill goes to the governor. It really looks like it's going to happen this time. But as of this moment, we're still at 25. If either Nebraska or Florida or not Louisiana is in the mix again, but if any of those states pass permitless carry, we'll get up to 26.
Yeah, that'll be a good day. I'd like to have that tipping point.
Absolutely. What I'd love to see right now, my permit is good. My South Dakota enhanced permit is good in 39 states. I would love to see 39 constitutional carry states.
Yeah.
And that's I think somewhere where we could get to. So, all righty, man. We're down at the bottom of the hour. Dan, before we take off, tell everybody, and I've got the wrong one. I've got 3, but I should have 2 here, because my green screen kind of eats up the cover of your book. Tell everybody about the Good Gun, Bad Guy series of books, and tell everybody about your radio show, man.
Okay, Good Gun, Bad Guy. I got all 3 right here. Let's see if we can get them on. So there's all 3. Good Gun, Bad Guy series, goodgunbadguy.com. and you can get the books. We do have hard covers as well. There are autographed copies, and you can buy the complete set, and you can get a discount on the complete set. And there's all sorts of different options to buy the book series. GoodGunBadGuy.com is the best place to go for that. And my web show, The Loaded Mic, is loadedmic.com. And keep your eyes out. Tomorrow night, 8 p.m. Eastern on Ops Lens, we're doing an episode on Good Guy with a Gun. It's the story of Raul Mendez, the good guy with a gun who saved a whole bunch of people. He got shot in the face, lost his eye. The bullet went through his face. Awful story, but you're going to meet Raul Mendez on Ops Lens tomorrow night, 8 p.m. Great show on Loaded Mic. You got to check that out.
I've covered that incident in the past as part of the DGUs for the Polite Society podcast. That is an amazing story, guys. Shot in the face. Yeah. One of his eyes is gone. He stays in the fight.
Yes, he put 4 bullets in the bad guy. And not only that, you're going to see for the first time ever on the Loaded Mic tomorrow night at 8 p.m. on Ops Lens, you're going to see the actual gun, the Glock 45 caliber gun that he used with the blood stains still on the gun. It was amazing when he popped that up in the interview. He said, "Oh, Dan," he said, "by the way, this is the first time that you're going to see anybody's ever seen this gun because he just got it back from the police department." Wow. So don't miss the show tomorrow night.
I will definitely be tuning in. That's going to do it for me today. I'm going to encourage everybody. There's been some things going on. I'm going to say right now, probably we're going to be moving to 6 p.m. Central Time starts for all of the bullets. Tomorrow, it may be 5, it may be 6 Central Time. But most likely, going forward, we're going to be moving to a 6 p.m. Central Time start for the bullet. Come join me for that. Everybody, thanks for watching. Those podcast listeners, thanks for listening. And we will see you next time.